Hey, I'm John Willis here at the DevOps Enterprise Summit in Las Vegas 2018. I believe this is our 5th year. And I got a special guest here. Christina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Christina Maslach, and I'm a professor of psychology at the University of California at Berkeley. And for the past few decades, I've been doing research on job burnout.
Awesome. So, one of the things that we've been doing, Gene has given us a great opportunity, Gene Kim, obviously, to actually bring people in from other fields that have really interesting overlap in some of the things that really are part of what we do. And, last year we brought in Sidney Decker and Steven Spears, but I thought this year would be great, to bring you in for a number of reasons.
Okay.
Because I think one of the themes that we're trying to get at is that the possibility is that when we look at burnout, that could we change that to the optimization side of it,
right?
Because I got this from you once. I heard one of your interviews or one of your sentences where you talked about going into executives and them telling you, "Well, Christina, what are we going to do? Put a couch in every office?" And I thought that was the kind of epiphany. Like, well, wait a minute, can we resell this as optimization?
Right. And it's an interesting kind of thing because I think for a long time there's hasn't been as much of this notion that there are ways that you can actually, help get the most out of the people that you're investing in and that you're counting on and so forth. And too often, maybe not with intention, but at least with that impact, things are being done or policies implemented or whatever that actually stifle people, restrict people, take control away, kill the spirit they have, rather than how do we make them thrive, and really move forward. And so it's not about trying to say pamper them or just give in to every whim. It's really about how to make this the best place for you to do what you do.
How do we get the best out of the organization?
Yeah.
So one of the first things that I ran across, which was somebody we both know, Josh Corman, he had sent me that they did the MBI, and I want you to kind of break that down for me, but against about 400 people that were in IT security, which was a high stress.
Right.
Josh's quote was, "We were tired of losing our friends in various quitting and sometimes suicide." And so I got to understand that, and then I started tracking some of your work, and ultimately we got to talk. But it was the MBI, which actually is the Maslach Burnout Index. So that kind of sets the stage for you as being one of the leaders in this field.
Yeah, and it was developed as a research measure. I had been doing work and had stumbled really across burnout. I hadn't been looking for it. I had never heard about it. And after a while, I realized, boy, this is an important thing that's happening with people. And so then after doing a lot of interviews and getting a better sense of what people were saying, said, can we develop a research measure that will help us look at what's causing this, or what are the consequences of this? How do you intervene, and so forth. What's happening now is that people are using it, like a diagnosis, which is a little different function in some way. Because we never defined it as a disease or that kind of thing, but in a way, it's a sign. People are saying, "Wait a minute, there is something there," and even if you don't know all the answers, we need to figure out what's happening and how much of a issue we have, and can we learn something from using that and looking at other stuff.
Yeah. So what is the MBI?
Yeah. Well, MBI, Maslach Burnout Inventory. It's a measure which has 3 subscales, and it was designed to measure the 3 key themes that we heard in all of these interviews. Right. I'm saying, okay, so can we capture those? And one of those is the stress response of exhaustion. Okay, and just feeling like your demands far outstripping your resources and not able to keep up and whatever. Not a surprise. We knew it was a stressful experience. But the next 2 were the ones that really were important for us. One was this depersonalizing, cynicism, hostile, kind of response, the sort of take this job and shove it,
or I'm like, everybody else is an idiot. So
I'm just
decoupling myself from.
Yeah, and if people would just take care of themselves, I wouldn't be in this bad, So it's this negative hostile towards other people, and what it means is is that when people are going there, they're not doing the best job. They're doing the least they can do just to get out of there. And
At
so
least they're not collaborating, right? Which they, like
it's not,
that's off the table.
not working, not working. So that for me is in the sense more at the heart. This is what I worry about more than that people get tired and exhausted, that they're getting this negative response to the job. And then the third thing we were finding is that people would begin to feel they're not getting much done, actually, and questioning, am I really good at this?
Right.
Should I be here? Should I bother? I mean, maybe I've made a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't do this. So it was really those three things that would sort of overlap in different patterns, and we were trying to capture those three and then say, so, what causes this kind of stuff? Is there a sequence? What happens when you really get very cynical or feeling really down on yourself? Does that change the quality of what you do, how you cope? How's your health? How are you treating your family as well as your colleagues? Things like that.
Well, it's interesting. I think, so I wrote an article about an incident that happened with somebody in our community.
Right.
And that I would say, I didn't choose Burnout, but Burnout chose me. It sounds like to you too, right?
Yeah.
So I just started trying to understand more about this, and so one of the things that I realized really early on, which is you kind of get the sense, I don't know if this kind of annoys you, but how we misuse the word burnout on so many layers.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And one is just where we kind of idolize it, like I'm burned out. Oh no, I'm burned out. But
let me tell you what I did.
Kind of. How much is your burnout? Right?
Yeah.
But then, I think in general, as a community, I mean, we're a pretty good community. But I think we've sort of squashed that.
Yeah.
But then I think there's another layer of that. Maybe there's a burnout that is not really on the path to clinical. In other words, I'm overworked and I'm just really tired and I need a rest.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's not and I'm using big words here, but preclinical, as opposed to a very significant, this has gone deeper.
Deeper and deeper, yeah. I mean, I've always felt, from what I've observed and what I've learned over the years, is that burnout is an important warning sign. When that happens, it's telling you something's not going so well. Okay. I mean, it's not deeply serious yet. But it could be. Yeah. And that what we're learning is that if people begin to have these kinds of issues and experiencing burnout, and they aren't able to cope, and they aren't able to get some help or some, advice that kind of gets them on a better path, they're at higher risk for things like severe clinical depression or anxiety or suicidal ideation or they're changing how they're dealing with the work and making more errors, being absent. I mean, there's just all of that kind of stuff.
High profile positions that you're just you're missing. I guess the other question I have then is it fair to say that maybe the kind of exhaustion and overwork is easier to spot than the other two?
Sure.
And so those become deeper. They can go a lot longer, kind of unnoticed.
It's an interesting point, and I think yes, the overwork, the exhaustion, the bragging rights go there. People, hey, I was 40
or
hours.
Or some people just say I'm not going to work this company because we call it a death march when people constantly make you run 4-month projects.
Right. But what happens with the other stuff is that people worry that it's going to be considered unprofessional to be like that, to feel like that, to make those kind of things. And so, and I think it's happening more now, unfortunately, they're finding that if you actually reach out and say to someone, wow, I'm just having a real tough day working with this customer, and could I just chat and maybe get some ideas or something? It's like people are afraid to reveal anything that is less than 100%. So if I'm feeling these other things about myself, about the job, whatever, you're going to try and keep it. Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
In a sense, even in the cynicism, that's another point about cynicism. I think sometimes people think cynicism is just being witty, right? Cynicism, like depersonalization. But I think what you're saying is that I think sometimes you're you got to put your pretty face on, right? Your kind of passive aggression maybe in that, I'm going to be real nice to you, but when you walk in my office, like, that person's an idiot. I don't want to work with them, or
right.
or the efficacy thing.
So it could be, and this I worry about because what we know from many people, many decades of research is that one of the best things for our well-being, both physically and psychologically, is to be connected and have good relationships with other people, our family, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues. And if we feel that we can't, that there's nobody out there who really has my back and I'm not able to do that, then I'm going to not express a lot of things. And people say, my God, I didn't know that she was feeling that way, or that he, he looked fine. Well, how could this have happened?
I've had, in New York, I gave this keynote on, my first burnout, and then the gentleman after me did a whole presentation on his depression. And over years, he's a really tall, good-looking man, and talked about his whole life. And then, so it hasn't been years, so I've talked a little bit about that. I've had bouts of depression as younger. And it's that spiraling effect that you feel like you're the only person out there. So that as you're getting into that kind of cave of efficacy, you start thinking that I'm the only one, and it seems like an enclave almost.
And it creates what we call pluralistic ignorance, because we are all putting on that I'm okay, I'm doing all right, because I don't want anybody to know what I'm going through. On the other hand, I'm feeling lonely because I can't reach out to anybody, and I'm thinking I'm the only one. Because everybody else, when I look out, I see the smile, they're okay, they're okay. So we're all leading other people to think things are fine, when in fact, we may have a lot of people who are going through this, and it's not just me or just you.
No, after I wrote that article, I got hundreds of emails from people in our industry, and almost everyone said, please do not tell anyone. And some of the younger people were like the VCs ever heard this, I'd never get funding. And there was this incredible paranoia about just psychology in general, right? And somebody sent me this interesting thing where they talked about how, on a Monday morning, if you come in with a cast on your leg, everybody wants to sign it. But if you came in at the coffee pot and said, hey, I saw my psychiatrist this weekend, people would scatter, right?
Damaged goods.
That's right.
Maybe he's contagious.
That's right. I'm gonna catch it. But I mean, is that we need to kind of normalize that? It's healthy, right?
You need to. I mean, and the other thing is that if people can get some help or guidance or advice or whatever earlier, it's much easier to begin to turn this around than let it fester and grow and really become a major thing where you feel you can never get out. And so the fact that people are feeling more and more, I mean, they're reporting to me, in interviews and stuff, that this is I'm working in a socially toxic workplace. And there's a sense that lots of people, but I'm feeling isolated. I don't know who I could talk to if I wanted to. And one of the biggest things that people, when I ask them, what would, do you think might help? Or, what would you like to see? The overwhelming number one thing has to do with somehow establishing some other kind of connections with other people. Could I have a mentor to talk to? Safe, trusted, but I could actually do it. Or we get together in a group and try to work this out. Or we get together and do some fun things, and so you get to know people and trust them and laugh a little bit and, all that kind of. So there's all different kinds of ways of doing it, but this is what people are saying is, at some level, I don't have those others.
Right, you have to break that down, the other thing I think that, so I think I've told you this story. So I did a couple of kind of cathartic presentations about, what I experienced from burnout for a couple of people I knew. And then it was a gentleman as part of our community, Randy Shoup. He was running this kind of all-day session of it was a technology conference, but it was like a U. So it was all mindset, all really good stuff. But he asked me if I could give the burnout, and he said specifically, can you give solutions? I'm like, no. But then he was like, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right, not solutions. He said, but surely you've learned a few things that you can express this beyond just saying, hey, burnout's bad, here's the thing, it's the MBI. And that's when I kind of stumbled deeply into your the work-life study
Yeah.
And
Right.
the thing that like that just it put a light bulb in me, because that was the point at which I thought, well, two things in kind of DevOps and systems, we talk about complex systems and system thinking.
Yeah.
Like so, what we try to do when we try to resolve big outages, and we try to get to a place where we don't use the humans as the actors.
Yeah.
We talk about what's the system, and
Right.
humans are just part of that system.
Yeah.
And what I saw in that body of work, which was, like the MBI was very much like bad person, bad company in a sense, right? Like this place is like really driving me too much work, and this is stressing me, or the efficacy thing. But this one seemed to look at it from the balance of the person and the company, and it was just now it was maybe it wasn't bad company, good person. It was just the fit.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is really awesome because it's system thinking.
It is.
It actually is allows you to look at it as a kind of system and a complex system. But then also when you went through the 6 mismatches, and
you do that.
Then I was like, oh my God, these is the anti-patterns.
Yeah.
This is what Damon last night was trying to say. Like so excited. Like these become like the anti-patterns of what we promote as kind of proper, organizational hygiene.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, like what? And what can we do? Can you talk about the workload study?
Yeah. Basically, it came from lots and lots of research, and also by many people, for a long time, even besides me and my colleagues and so forth. But what it was is we were really trying to aggregate all of this and say, what is this telling us? And, could some of this be related to burnout, or engagement is kind of its opposite there. And what we were finding, or have found so far at least, is that there are these 6 areas where if there is a bad fit or mismatch or imbalance, between the person and the job, things are not going to go well. And it doesn't mean things have to be perfect, but if things are a little bit better, then that can be a real source of, strength and so forth. So what we discovered is that of those 6 areas, there's a couple, one in particular that everybody goes to, everybody thinks of first. And the good news is there's 5 more than that one, where you might be able to say, wow, we've got an issue here. We could start here in terms of dealing with this. So the one that everybody thinks of is workload. And basically, the imbalance is that it's way too much being demanded and not enough resources to actually get it done within that's
capacity,
and that is connected to exhaustion, part of burnout. I mean, we got that. But then what we're seeing is that there are these other areas. One of them has to do with autonomy and control, the extent to which you have some say, discretion, choice about how you're doing things. You do it this way, that way, A third one has to do with what we started out calling reward. It's a kind of positive feedback when you do something well. And you think of salary, you think of benefits, perks, etc. We're finding a lot in the research that a huge part of it is social recognition.
Well, is that part of the fairness too? Is that, or
it can be related to the fairness, though they can overlap. But I mean, the recognition is that you do something and you actually, people were glad you were there. You handled that, kind of thing, and that you not every day, but just periodically. So it's that kind of thing. The fourth area, and this is the one I'm beginning to worry more about, is what we call community, meaning all the people who you come in contact with as part of the workplace. So colleagues and clients and bosses and people you supervise and so forth. And are those relationships working well? Do you know how to resolve disagreements and conflicts, and or have you got a lot of trust, lack of support, people throwing each other under the bus, that kind of stuff, the socially toxic. Fifth one has to do with fairness. And that is really that whatever the policies, whatever it is, how we do things, they're fairly applied in terms of who gets the next opportunity, or
this is the one
who gets hired or gets the,
As I went through these things, that's where like the light bulb went off. Like fairness is a really interesting one, right? So So sometimes when I'm giving that kind of human psychological performance or whatever, I say. Ask the room, and usually it's a lot of developers. I'll say, how many people would be upset if they found out the top 5 highest paid people in their company were sales reps? And a lot of people raise their hand, I'd be upset. And then I'm like, well, is my company? Like, you're in the wrong company.
Yeah.
Right, because there's an interesting, fairness isn't just evil or good.
No.
It's like we have a company that we actually want to overpay our sales reps because that's how we get our equity. And,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so if you're somebody who would be, well, I produce all the code and why don't I? You're in the wrong place, right? So it's that balance of, it's not like an unfair company. They've just chosen this path, and you get stressed by, in your mind, that's an unfair.
That is an unfair kind of thing. Or, whatever process goes to, in terms of who gets a new kind of job or gets, so when we talk about glass ceilings and we talk about, discrimination in some ways, the kind of say, what's going on, that, or fairness that turns out to be, you see people getting ahead because of who they know, but not what they do, so there's all kinds of variations of how this, could happen. But if people are feeling that the way we're supposed to be able to do things isn't being done fairly, and or I'm in a place where what they're choosing to value
is their choice,
is I'm not cool with that.
So the other one too, it might be, what's the sixth one again?
The sixth one is values, and values is really this sort of, sometimes that's the most important. It's like about the meaning of the work you're doing and why you're there, and the feeling you have about the contribution you're making, or the pride you're taking in what you've been able to accomplish, or that. And I've seen people working in jobs where the rewards aren't great, they don't have much control. All these other things aren't great, but the meaning, wow, that's solid gold, and that'll take them through. It says, I will do anything because this is so important. But I think with burnout, the thing that why sometimes that looms so importantly is that if people begin working in environments where, in a sense, the changes that are happening or the way the job is being structured and so forth is just squashing out all the value, the meaning, why I'm here. It's like I'm, so this is why you hear people in healthcare saying, this is not why I became a doctor. This is not, I'm not able to you work with patients, that kind of thing.
I think in a lot of the industrialized occupations, right, just in general, anything, one of the things that's interesting on ours is a lot of creative people. In general, we have it pretty good. We're mostly pretty well paid and very sought after, like most people here. But so I think that what's interesting on some of those things, again, I go back to, there's a couple of companies in our community, like Netflix, very transparent about the way it is. And the CEO has sort of a manifesto or a white paper he's written, which is basically, here's what happens at Netflix. And one of the quotes I love is adequate performance gets an ample severance. In other words, you're going to come here and it's going to be hard, and we're going to have high expectations. And so to me, it goes back to, imagine that you could, this is a very simplistic model, imagine you could assess what are your stressors and where are you on the workload balance. And a company could be really good at, to a certain extent, being very transparent about the things that could actually get matched up earlier so that you could actually create,
as long as they are, in a sense, practicing what they preach.
Of course.
This is where we get. This is where I see tons of problems. It looks good on the wall.
Well, there's layers of that too, right? They practice speech globally, and then there's the kind of what happens at the edge too. But at least there's Spotify's another company that really tries to be very transparent about what their culture looks like, right? And at least those two companies try to. Of course, when you have large organizations and lots of moving parts, it's hard to actually. But I just in a perfect world, wouldn't it be nice if a company could capture transparently that we always say about change culture, right? I would say it's not really about change culture. It's a culture that in many cases made you a great corporation, right? It's maybe about habits. I don't know.
I think culture is such a big, broad word, and again, it's sort of hard to, but it's possible to modify culture. For example, I have a colleague who did a lot of work in healthcare in hospitals, working primarily with nurses, about how nurses treat each other on the job, and this was identified by the nurses as one of the biggest issues. and the civility, the way we talk to each other, the way we should be getting along really well because we're doing the same job. We understand it. People don't understand, et cetera. But what they were finding is it was the snarkiness, the sarcasm, the rolling the eyes, the whatever that was just this chronic thing that just embitters people after a while, saying, why am I working here? Well, he did a thing, with the research that nurses had developed as a program, a 6-month program, where they were able to kind of work that out and get people to handle the little conflicts and the little things along the way and realize, oh, you can do it this way rather than that way. And it actually began to make a change in that part of the culture, which is the interaction between us, which is not what is the corporate thing written on the wall. And
of course, the poster.
All the rest, So it's at many levels, and if it's and so with burnout, what we're saying is that it seems to be responsive to these chronic, everyday, situational kind of stressors, which often look like too low down and too everyday, to be important. But they're the things.
But they're the ones that
really just.
Over time, just crazy. Well, it's like that thing when you only have a fight with your spouse, right? It's been built up for a very long time. Well, I guess that sort of leads me to it's my final piece, which was, the question I think most people would Christina Maslach, an expert, tell us how to solve this problem, right? Because I'm not going to ask you that question. But I guess one thing I probably heard is, which is sort of obvious, is like the nurse example, is like, so to answer, you have to go and do a lot of discovery to find those little kind of little pieces and then map them out on how you start to incrementally break those. How would
you do it? I mean,
what do you do? How do you, if you're brought into an organization and you want to, and they really want to...
The conversation is very different at different levels. Yeah. And I think one of the challenges that I'm seeing now is that that the stuff that is coming from the top is not as well informed, if at all, by what comes up from the bottom. If I can say, the people out on the floor, who are doing the work, feeling unheard, that people aren't understanding what's working, what's not working. They don't have much control or say over it, and they're the ones that are taking a lot of the brunt of this. And so sometimes people say, well, what should we do? And if we do, I've decided we're going to do this and make it a healthy place, and put fruit in the...
From down on high, this is how we change, right?
Without ever checking in. And what I hear from people when I'm interviewing them at these different levels, they're in different units, they're doing different things, like say in a hospital. The things that are sometimes mentioned or often mentioned are not on the top of their list of what would really help here, kind of thing. And it wouldn't cost as much money, but they know because they're dealing with it. So like in healthcare right now, they're talking about concept of all the frustrating, irritating, wearing away stuff that goes on. And they're talking about it as pebbles in the shoe. And it's kind of like, it's the stuff that just slows you down, makes you cranky, all that kind of stuff. And if you can start making some of those changes and you empower people to actually think about solutions and carry them out, they don't have to go to the boss and get tons of money to do it. But you can begin to make it a little bit better. And what happens is when they do that is it breeds a little bit of optimism. So, hey, we could do this if we did that. That wasn't so bad, kind of thing. So it's having better communication about what are the things that could actually get rid of the obstacles, the pebbles, that allow us to actually kind of grow and thrive and feel good about what we're doing. And the more you can do that, the other thing I've learned from this is that it's rarely ever a one size fits all
of course,
for everybody. So the idea that there is a single best practice that will.
No, I think you're right. I think it is about the pebbles, and the kick is to figure out what the pebbles are, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting, I to kind of really tie that all back together. I mean, a lot of what we learned over kind of 10 years of studying this thing we call DevOps was that a lot of things we didn't invent and actually came from the way lean and then Toyota Production Systems. And that was a very edge-based, everybody had a mentor. And so very similar that people felt more empowered and the discussions actually tended to kind of come up as opposed to down, and
Yeah.
there's a reason why Toyota for almost 50, 60 years like decimated the market.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like that's the thing I get interested about inviting you in, because when
Yeah.
you describe something,
Yeah.
it's we can have that same conversation with somebody like Steven Spears
Yeah,
about
yeah.
how the true the people that really know how Toyota work was more about
Yeah.
creating that systemic way of allowing them
Yeah.
to find the pebbles at the edge,
Yeah.
and have that conversation bubble up, as opposed to kind of a classic Western command and control
Control kind of
structure.
thing.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I think that's interesting about putting all these fields together, because I think we're all
Yeah.
kind
Coming-
of finding the same stuff, that
Coming out, yeah.
collaboration, humans,
Yeah, well, the thing is that I think, that we need to remember that whenever we're talking about any kind of change or improvement or something like that, you are counting on a bunch of people, maybe not everybody, but you're counting on a bunch of human beings to change and make this happen. And if they haven't been part of figuring out how to do it, or whether it's the best thing,
Yeah.
and I've seen so many change efforts with all the bells and whistles.
Posters,
we're going to
and,
go,
the campaigns. Yeah.
dead on arrival, because people are saying this is nonsense. They're not putting their heart and soul into it. They're dragging their feet.
Right.
They're running shadow systems because they don't trust that this is going to. All of that other kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, maybe they were wrong, but they weren't given good information to start, or maybe they really know something and
No,
they
of
should
course.
pay attention.
I mean, that's the thing, is they actually do know a bunch of stuff, right?
And how can we just have a better way of kind of saying, okay, let's make steps, let's make progress, and just sort of figuring out.
Well, I've heard you've been invited to RSA.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I'm so happy you're part of our community.
Yeah.
Because
thank
I do
you.
think that I think in general, I think people just want to kind of get a handle on just the concept of burnout, but I think there's just so much more about optimization in your body of work, and overlap that. So,
And how can we-
so I'm glad you're here, and looking forward to your presentation later today. So.
Thank you so much,
thank you.
John.
Okay,
It was
sure.
great.
Absolutely.